Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Thursday, October 9th, 2025. Coming at you live from Borelli's Tap Room in Long Beach. That's right, we are live on location here, getting you ready for Islanders versus Penguins. Going to be a big night. Going to be a lot of fun. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me tonight is Mr. Arthur Staple. Arthur, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Opening night. What could be better than that?
What can be better? The new hockey season is here. Hope is in the air, and hopefully it lasts all season long. So let's settle in. Let's have a show here. But before we do, I want to remind you all that we are proud to be sponsored by Knock Hockey. That's right, the all-time classic made in the USA. Get yours at knockhockey.com. That's N-O-K, hockey.com. Also proud to be sponsored by Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And folks, if you're hanging out with us live in the chat while the show is going on and you want to get your questions answered during Questions Brewing, just type in Questions Brewing followed by your question, and we'll get to it later on in the show. So with all that fun stuff out of the way, let's jump into it here. Little pregame prep, Islanders versus Penguins. Now, we touched on the Pens a little bit, last week, or at least on Sunday, leading into this, but let's do a deeper dive into the Islanders here. Let's talk about the lines, the defensive pairings. I think Ilya Sorokin's probably starting tonight. Didn't get the confirmation on that.
I think that's pretty safe.
Probably safe, right? So let's take a look at these lines that they put together, and let's just talk about maybe how they're going to work and how they're going to look on the ice. Maybe a little bit of a different feel, some surprises in there. You got the top line, Jonathan Drouin with Bo Horvat and Emil Heineman. Heineman's a little bit of a surprise there, being on the top line. I think we all had him pegged for a bottom six guy, but apparently he's impressed, or at least Wah liked the fit there. What do you see in that line? How's that line going to fare facing up against the Penguins tonight?
I think the fact that Horvat is such a good two-way center, he's not a true number one in the sense, they're playing against Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, who were co-number ones back in the prime.
Right.
Their prime.
Yes.
And Sid is still a real number one. So, but Horvat really, I think he accentuates the two-way play that the Islanders really like, that Lou Lamoriello liked when he traded for him and signed him long-term. He's certainly got a quality offense and a good shot. And I think their two-way play, I think you're going to see them play a lot against Crosby's line. Although, watching the Penguins play on Tuesday and shutting out the Rangers, getting Malkin's line with Justin Brazeau was pretty good.
Yeah.
Provided a lot of offense, kind of put the Rangers back on the heels. So I think maybe they have the ability with that number one line to swap out with J.G. Pajot's third line in terms of matchups. You're on the road, too, so you're not always going to get what you want. And I don't think that matchups are going to be that key. I think Patrick Waugh wants to see what his guys have, no matter who they're out there against. So, what we talked about last week, the benefit of having 12 forwards that are pretty even, 1 through 12. There's not a big drop off, maybe the way that there was at times last year. At times maybe at the tail end of the identity lines run, that maybe those guys were slowing down a little bit. Apologies to those guys out there, but. I think the balance that they have now, I think Patrick Waugh wants to see they can play against anybody. When you've got Max Siplikov and Anthony Duclair, who are, can be scoring wingers on the fourth line, you're going to play them against anybody. So I think that top line, you want to see what Emil Heineman can do with a shot.
Right.
Maybe encourage him to have a little more offense. Maybe you've got Jonathan Drouin there to be kind of the pivot, the playmaker, setting up those other two guys. But I think most importantly is show some balance, play at both ends, be fast, and that's what Heineman can provide there.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I think you see that every now and then, right? Where you see a guy who not necessarily when you look at the roster, you say, oh yeah, you peg him for the first line, but every now and then, you look at like the Leo Komarovs of the world, right? And they end up top because they fill a role.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the guy that's in the corners, grinding pucks out, feeding the pucks out to Bo Horvat or Jonathan Drouin. So I'm curious to see, because the guy does have a motor. And the guy he plays a hard game.
Yeah.
Looking at all his clips, it looks like he's a guy who's going to be in the trenches.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think he really had the opportunity or made himself the opportunity in Montreal to be a scoring top 6 guy.
Right.
I'm sure we're going to see him on the penalty kill too. He's on that second power play unit. We're not so sure how much that second unit's going to get time wise.
We'll get to that.
They do seem to have a top heavy power play split. But, I think they want to see what Heineman can do. He showed a lot in the preseason, I think, and in training camp to earn that spot ahead of maybe where Max Shabanov had been there earlier in camp. So I think they want to see him continue on with it. If he can keep going with it, why not try him there?
All right, so let's move on to line 2, a bit of a heritage line for the New York Islanders. Anders Lee, Matt Barzal, and Kyle Palmieri. We talked a little bit about the speed disparity between Barzal and his wingmen. Obviously Lee and Palmieri, both guys known for scoring, but of course on the wrong side of the age of 30. How do you see those guys lining up at Barzal and seeing if they can be a threat out there?
I'm interested to see how Lee and Palmieri work on opposite sides because they're very similar players now at that stage in their career. Like you said, not speedsters, maybe never were.
Fair as well.
Guys that grind, that are physical, that can plant themselves in front of the opposing net and cause a lot of problems. It's going to be interesting to see who kind of takes the lead in that spot when they're forechecking or when they've got the puck in the offensive zone. When Barzal is going up the ice and he's curling, kind of making that signature Barzal move inside the blue line where he's looking for people. I think Anders Lee works well there because Anders Lee has always done well as an open ice shooter. I think that's kind of what having his shot back last year and some of his power in his lower body, I think gave him kind of the push to really have such a good season last year. And I think throughout his career, he's been that guy as a trailer who can find space and sneak pucks through goalies. Palmieri, I think, has become really their best net front guy too. It's obviously, we'll talk about that on the power play. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work. And Palmieri, his work on the penalty kill, he's a sneaky good, well-rounded player. And I think it took a little while for Islanders fans to see that after the trade. I think he had a couple stops and starts with injuries. So, I don't know if this is the ideal line to unleash a 100-point Mathieu Barzal. But I'm curious to see again. I think Wah is going for balance, and he wants to see maybe what he's going to do when he's able to roll 4 lines early in the year.
Gotcha. And you talk about Palmieri and his net front presence, and Anders Lee, of course, as well, a guy who's known for that. So now Barzal's a guy who I want to see shooting more all the time. But playing with those two guys, is there more of an onus for him to do that because they're net crashers?
Not only that, but I think people are not expecting him to shoot because you've got two, kind of no conscience goal scorers with him, the guys who like to muck around and score dirty ones or kind of throw a lot of pucks on net. He's going to have to say to himself, if I'm going to be effective as a passer, I've got to be able to be a threat to shoot because nobody's going to believe me. So, I think that's been a theme throughout Barzal's career, that maybe that you're looking to make too many plays rather than being a guy who has a great shot and has an ability to score goals. We've seen him score more than 20 a couple of times. He could have certainly had 30 a couple of those years too.
Sure.
So I think he's going to have to be a little bit more selfish, a little bit more of an attacking guy.
Yeah, and as great as Josh Bailey was, I think Barzal might have just gotten a little too close to him or spent a little too much time with him because I think he comes from that school of, obviously he's a pass-first guy, but, sometimes I have flashes of old memories of Josh Bailey when you just like shoot the puck, man, and you see him curl back and look for the open man, and I get it, but I'd really like to see some more shots out of Matt Barzal this season, every season, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Fair enough.
But let's move on to the third line. Max Shabanov, J.G. Pajot, and Simon Holmstrom. Simon Holmstrom kind of, revealed himself last year in the sense that, it was kind of a coming out party for him. Like, he started putting up more points. He looked a lot more confident out on the ice. It looks like he's a guy who could, settle in as a middle six guy. Maybe we see him more on the second line as Patrick Waugh kind of finds the right combinations this season. But what did you see out of him? And then we'll talk a little bit more about J.G. and Shabanov.
I'm a little bit surprised that he's ended up where he ended up. I thought he would be the guy that would get that top 6 long look, a bit of a leash there because of the way he played last season, and even 2 seasons ago when he led them in shorthanded goals. This is a guy who can score. He's got a lot of speed. He's got a super high hockey IQ. And I think, maybe what's holding him back still, he's still a young guy. I don't think he kind of recognized the opportunity he had. I think that's common with young guys where you come into training camp and you're just sort of like, okay, I still need to make the team. It's like, no, you're here and we're relying on you to score some goals and we need you to produce and we need you to think about what it'd be like to be a 17, 18, 19-minute a guy, play alongside Horvat, play alongside Barzal, be a guy who's going to unleash that good shot. So Heineman, I think, kind of like you said, that high motor maybe pushed past Holmstrom, who's still maybe still thinking about what he should be doing, since he's been more of a defensive focused guy before. So I have a little confidence that we'll see him emerge as the season goes on, because that's really the way his trajectory has been, where he's started a little slow. Middle of the season, he seems to come on when everybody else is starting to, kind of settle into the dog days. So if you can push that timeline up a little bit to maybe the next few weeks, and seize that job and kind of be in the spot that I think the Islanders expect him to be, because he does have the potential to be a real good scorer on this team.
Agreed. So obviously now we have Max Shabanov. Everybody's waiting to see what this guy's going to bring to the table, right? Looked pretty good in preseason and training camp. Like you said before, it looked like he might have gotten a start, higher in the lineup. He's got pushed back. Sounds like he's embracing it. He's looking forward to playing with JG Pageau, getting the defensive game going. Listen, I know it's hard to say without really seeing the games go, but what do you think this guy's going to bring to the table?
I think we touched on it a little bit on Sunday that that you have that breakout KHL year, you can kind of get labeled as a scorer over there, and they do play a lot of the games on smaller ice now. I think most of the newer rinks in Russia are North American sized ice, so it's not really that he's got lots more time and space because he's a littler guy,
right?
So I think he's used to that style, that sort of ice size. It's a different style of play, though. The quality is obviously not as good as it is in the NHL. You have less time to make decisions. Goaltending is not quite as good. So, I think it's going to take a little bit of time, which is totally fair. And putting him on the top line right away, I'm sure that was a confidence boost, but you got to earn it. And maybe it's a good thing to see that he didn't earn it. And they did. There was a consideration that, okay, we're not just going to hand this guy something. Kind of the way it was for Siplikov last year, where he bounced around a little bit. He certainly looked great. Siplikov, remember that first game he had where he had a goal and should have had another one, and they should have beaten Utah quite handily in that game.
That's right. Yes.
I don't want to bring up bad memories, but that kind of set the tone for a very disappointing season. In any event, I think if we see Shabanov kind of embrace the style of play and kind of where he is in the lineup, the way that Siplikov did, you still want to see the flashes of offense. You still want to see what got him here. But if he can kind of embrace the overall role and show that, I think for Patrick Roy, like a lot of NHL coaches, you want to have at least one, maybe two guys who can be a good threat on any line. You don't want to put a line out there where you just we just want to tie it, dump it in, and get off the ice. I think the style that Patrick Roy wants to play, up tempo, offensive threats everywhere. So if he's on this line, Holmstrom is there. Pageau, we know, is a consistent guy who can provide 30 or 40 points every year with doing all the other stuff that he does, kind of those intangibles. I'm curious to see. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I'm curious to see how it starts.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Arthur. I don't think these lines are going to last very long at all, to be fair. Like, I looked at this and I was like, okay, and you mentioned it, balance, fine, but I just have a feeling that this thing is going to be scrambled sooner than later.
Hopefully not in the middle of the game tonight, because that could be a bad sign.
Well, yeah, let's see what happens in those first 40 minutes. But it's a very interesting line, and I think even more intrigue is this fourth line here, and maybe this is a testament to the depth that you were talking about in our last show, where you have Duclair there with Cizikas, obviously a mainstay pivot there on the fourth line, and then Siplikov. I'm really curious to see what happens, not only with how they perform, but also just how much Roy rolls them out there. Like, are they going to be, that unbalanced, like, they get a few minutes here and there compared to the rest of the lines, or is Roy going to try to, roll them out as often as possible to try to take advantage of this depth that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about the guys that maybe are surprised where they are. Heineman being up that high, that the pivots with Barzal that maybe aren't quite up to his level. Shabanov being where he is. I think Duclair might be the biggest surprise of the 12 starting where he is. And, he's coming off an injury. He's coming off a very difficult season that he had that ended prematurely. And it sounds like from what he said during training camp, just wasn't healthy. And there's a lot of pride involved. He didn't want to say. He obviously, his first year of a long-term deal, he was the biggest addition that they made in free agency. And then unexpectedly gets called out in kind of a harsh way by Patrick Roy. They have a long-standing relationship. I'm sure he was pretty hurt by that. And then, I think Lou kind of giving him permission to leave, knowing that he wasn't healthy anyway. But not really an explanation of why at the moment. I think maybe that left a little bit of uncertainty. It's good to have him back. He can be a positive presence. I don't think he's going to be a positive presence as a fourth line guy playing 9 minutes a night.
Yeah,
but he will get some power play time. And I think if he shows some of the things he showed in the last couple preseason games, that burst that he has, that he's fully all the way back healthy, that the groin is fine, that he can have that explosive, move up the ice and the ability to make the passes that he makes. I don't think we'll see him stay in this spot very long. I
agree with you there. And just before we go to the D pairings, I did want to touch on Barzal moving back to center. Now, it's being done out of necessity. There's no Brock Nelson there anymore. They need a proper fit there. You mentioned it last show how, having a guy like J.G. Pageau up there is probably a little too high for him, right? You have Richie, who's on the mend at the moment. But just as far as chemistry, as far as performance, take away have the necessity of it. But do you think that he's going to be all right in that center spot compared to playing on the wing with Horvat?
I do. I think it's ironic they're playing the Penguins because I think the model is the Crosby-Malkin model. Obviously, Horvat and Barzal are not at that level. They're not automatic Hall of Famers.
That's fair to say. Yeah, that's fair to say.
But I think the idea that you have these guys on separate lines to drive play and then offensive zone face-off late in the period or just when you need a goal, putting them together, making that, they do have good chemistry together. The injuries on both sides, I think, since Horvat has been here, I'm sure you could count up. It's probably got to be less than 70 games that they've been able to play together. It's pretty ridiculous that they've been so stifled because of these injuries, and there is good chemistry there. So I think this is the right way to go about it for now. That you start off, they anchor their own lines, they drive their own play, they have their own chemistry with their own wingers, and then when you need a little bit of a boost, you put them out there together and see if it works, because it certainly worked for Sid and Gino for a lot of years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No question about it. So let's move on to the defense now. Let's look at these pairings here. We talked a little bit about them on Sunday. Romanov and DeAngelo on the top pairing. Not sure you look at a lineup here and say, yeah, that's where those guys belong, but that's where they are. Romanov and DeAngelo, top pair. You're going to get your offense from DeAngelo. You're going to get your two-way play from Romanov. He gets that big contract this summer. He's going to be here for a while. What do you think?
I liked this pair last year. I was obviously put together out of necessity when Dobson was hurt, but I do like it. I think if Tony can play smart, play the way that he played last year, I don't think he needs to play 26 minutes a night. I do have a full lineup now of they're not missing 4 defensemen like they seem to have been missing in the middle of every year.
Yes.
And I think Romanov, again, a kind of a sneaky ability to get up in the play and has some good offensive instincts. Obviously the big hits and being a good guy in his own end is paramount for him. But I think that pair is probably the best pair that can get up the ice together, that can get back together, that has that synergy that you need, I think, in an ideal Patrick Waugh system of trying to provide offense from the back end, trying to be that fourth or even fifth guy up in the rush to put teams on their heels. And I think Pittsburgh's lack of depth, really, those two guys can play a big role just tonight and kind of set the tone by getting up in the rush, by turning pucks over, by putting a Pittsburgh team that is kind of old and slow in places and young and untested in other places. I think those guys will be key tonight. I don't think this is a game really for sitting back and kind of absorbing things. I think they want to be aggressive, and I think that's the pair that's going to be able to drive the aggressiveness.
I agree. I'm curious to see where it goes. I did like what I saw out of DeAngelo last season. I thought that, he jumped right in. I think you even mentioned it on the last show where he was playing 27 minutes pretty much as soon as he showed up.
You look at the sheer numbers of minutes he played, and I remember talking to him about it late in the year. We mentioned it the other day, sitting there next to him in the stall. It's do you ever think you came back from Russia and you're yeah, I'm just going to go coach kids down in South Jersey if I don't get a job. And Lou gives him a job, and all of a sudden he's playing more minutes than he's ever played. A guy who was a first-round pick in the league. It's a remarkable turnaround, and it's great that he recognized that this was a good place to be for him and filling that role. With the Dobson trade, I'm sure that once he signed, maybe that wasn't locked in, but now that they need a right side guy that can move the puck, and they have him, and he's QBing the top power play for now. It's a big opportunity for him, and I hope he embraces it.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, so moving on to pair number 2, old reliable in a sense. Pelech Pulick, obviously mainstays here in the team for a long time. They've had success in the past, but more recently, as we discussed on Sunday, the injuries have gotten in the way. Not only just their appearance in the lineup, but also just, kind of aging them a little bit, getting a little older here, and maybe not the same pair they once were. Now they're the middle pairing, not so much the top pairing anymore in recent years. How do you see them lining up here?
I hope that they can give what they've been giving for a long time. Health is obviously a question mark. Age, you slow down playing the way that they play.
Right.
We talked about guys getting up in the rush. You've got two guys there that have been beset by injuries over the years that weren't necessarily like guys that could fly up the ice to begin with. We do remember maybe a decade ago when Ryan Pulock started to emerge as a guy, with a big shot, but also with an ability to make some offensive plays.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that a ton the last couple of years, I'm sure hampered by injuries. So I'm curious to see how they can fit into this system really well now. Again, we're talking about the way that Patrick Roy wanted to play when he first got here was definitely in a bit of conflict with the way that the team was built. Now he's maybe got more of a free rein to implement this system, but can you implement it with two 30-plus defensemen who are renowned as like guys that were incredible shutdown defensemen and incredible in Barry Trotz's system, which was a lot more conservative. So I'm curious to see how it'll go and whether there's a little bit of not confusion, but they're being asked to do different things, and that can be hard to do when you're 5, 6, 7, 800 games into an NHL career. So if they can adapt and be smart and be shrewd about when to rush, when to turn things over, when to be conservative, it'll help. But and it also helps to have D'Angelo on one pair and Schaefer on another, where you're not being asked to do everything. Which again, when they're healthy, they have been asked to do a lot in previous years.
Yeah, and that's the key for me, Arthur, the health. Let's just see how long they can actually last on the ice. Yes, hopefully all 82 games, not putting money on it.
Okay,
but
that's optimistic. I don't know if I'm going to make all 82 games. I'm not even out there.
Listen, I'm trying my best here, but look, these guys have had a history, and hopefully it's behind them. Hopefully we see the most games out of those two guys that we've seen in a very long time. But let's move it on to the third pairing here, probably the most intriguing, the most exciting. We're going to see what happens. Matthew Schaefer with Scott Mayfield, the grizzled veteran with the young rook, the number 1 overall pick. A lot of hype. He made the team out of camp. Looks like he's going nowhere. Matthew Schaefer, Scott Mayfield. What do you got, Arthur?
Yeah, I'm as excited as anybody else to see what Schaefer can offer. And, I think for Mayfield, it's probably a good person to have with him. I mentioned it on the show the other day. He really likened it to when he used to play with Nick Leddy. It's like having Nick Leddy, but a bigger, beefier defenseman who's got the incredible instincts and kind of the all-out at both ends style to kind of want to be a force to improve every day that Matthew Schaefer seems to have. It's incredible to see all positive quotes about him, but not even about the way that he's played, just the way that he's handled himself.
Right.
And I think that's super important here, that we know this is maybe not going to be a lights-out 120-point season for the Islanders, so he's going to be tested mentally, physically, longer season than he's ever played. Obviously, the injury last year. Playing a lot more minutes, playing against much bigger, more physical players, not really like having the free rein to be so much better than everybody that he was at the last level. So, I think starting tonight, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much he plays, how much the Penguins key on him when he's on the ice to try to keep him from getting up the ice or pen him in, specifically trying to target him on the forecheck. It's going to be interesting to see how he's treated, basically, once we get the games going. And, really, after tonight, what is it, 5 games in 9 nights for them or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to be a real test for him, and I'm interested to see how he handles all of it. I'm sure the quotes are going to be immaculate. He's just a great kid, and hearing that he has 30 or 40 people in Pittsburgh, and I'm sure they'll all be back at UBS on Saturday for the home opener. It's an incredible story that all the stuff that he's been through and how he's been able to handle it with his mother passing away and his billet mom passing away. It's you just marvel at how he can handle himself. I talked to him a little bit at the Combine back in June, and just even just on the conversational level, talking to a kid who's 17 years old, who's able to have a full conversation with
Right.
you. It's incredible. So, I think everybody's rooting for him too, and I think he's a perfect number one pick to be in this spot right now for the Islanders. They want to be better. We know it's not going to happen right away.
Right.
We want him to be better. We know it's not going to happen right away. But there's so much excitement and so much positivity now, which maybe is a rarity in Islander land.
What do you mean? What are you talking
Not
about?
always the most optimistic.
Everybody's happy here.
Everybody's happy here at
Everybody's
Borelli's,
happy, yes.
which is great, but not always in the Islander universe.
I don't know what you're talking about, Arthur.
So I think that really factors in, and we talk about, will he stay 9 games? We don't want to see anything that might change the course of his development, but I don't see any reason why he won't be here the whole season and be able to be a contributor.
It certainly seems like it's tracking that way. And how do you like him pairing up next to Scott Mayfield? I actually think it's a good mix. I think you got the speed there, you got the skill, and you got the stay-at-home guy, the guy who's going to be clearing the front of the net.
Yeah, I think we're going to see him bounce around. I think I could see him playing with Pollock occasionally, depending on how those two pairs work out. Pollock is a similar kind of player, but maybe a notch or two above Scott's level right now. So I'm interested to see how he handles that. Maybe he could even be playing with D'Angelo when you're going for a little bit more speed, a 6-on-5 situation. Those are the two defensemen that are quarterbacking the 2 power play units. So I think we might see that late in games and see how their speed meshes. They can cause a lot of havoc in the offensive zone. I think you just want to see him show some confidence, which he certainly hasn't lacked in the preseason, but obviously the regular season is a different animal. Just to see him go out there and be what he can be, because they need it. There just isn't anyone like him on this team.
Correct.
And we can't move him forward 5 years to where he's a Norris Trophy candidate, but we can hope for confidence, willingness to make some mistakes. We've seen, his ability to recover and try to break up breakaways when he's 50 feet behind guys.
Pretty impressive.
So I think he's got the right attitude so far, and it's going to be fun.
All right, so give me your best guess here. How many minutes is Matthew Schaefer logging tonight?
We've seen Patrick Waugh. He threw 20 minutes on Isaiah George from pretty much the first second that young guy came up last year at 20 years old. So he's not afraid to pile it on if he sees a young guy kind of feeling it. So I'm going to say 16, 17, which a typical third pair guy I think in the league is more in the 15, 16 range. So I'll give him a couple extra minutes. I'm sure he'll get some power play time. Maybe I'll even go 18 for tonight. For his debut.
18 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, 16 to 18. You heard it from Arthur Staple. Let's move on to the goaltending. A little more straightforward here. Ilya Sorokin between the pipes, Rittich backing up until to be determined. Semyon Varlamov, if he ever comes back. It seems to be a mystery situation there. But what do you see here?
I see a number one goalie that's going to have to win some games because I don't have a ton of confidence in Big Save Dave behind him.
Big Save Dave.
It's a great.
Is that an original?
No, that's his nickname.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, he's been around long enough. It's Western. I
was about to say West
Western
Coast,
Western Conference hockey. You're not familiar.
Not at all.
Yeah, I don't see it with Riddick right now. He could surprise. It's just it's hard to be a backup when he's kind of been a starter, spot starter. He's been a backup. He's done both roles. It's just a tough one to kind of settle into. But I think we hit on it on Sunday. It's still true, and Sorokin is just not at his best when he goes over 54, 55 starts. So they're going to need somebody in there to play at least a third of the games, maybe even a few more. This is a busy stretch, like we were just saying, to start off the season. That game every other night. I don't think you want to throw him into all of those. I think you'd even love to see him maybe play 3 of those 5, ideally, and let Riddick take the other 2. But the goal is to have Ilya Sorokin playing at his high level because he is the clear number one. Nobody's going to take that job from him. We'd love to see Semyon Varlamov back. I think everyone knows what he can do as a backup, but nobody knows if that's ever going to happen again.
Yeah.
So it's Sorokin's net, and he's going to start tonight. He's probably going to start on Saturday, and then we'll go from there. And if he puts up a couple of good performances, I think that's really what you want to see.
Yeah, no question about it. And let's see how it goes. It looks like once again there is going to be a lot on Sorokin's shoulders here, and we'll just see if Patrick Waugh can kind of balance the starts there for the two of them. But let's touch on the special teams a little bit here. You mentioned that earlier. We have Palmieri, Horvat, and Drouin on the top line on the power play unit, and then Barzell and D'Angelo on the back end there. A lot of firepower, like you said, a little top heavy here when you compare the two units. And only way they can go is up here, Arthur. Will they is the question.
I'd be interested to see with Barzal and Drouin on their off wing, kind of in the 1-3-1. Every other team has always keyed on when Barzal's healthy. They key on him. They know you send your D-man or your forward out to that opposite face-off circle and kind of crowd him, and it really disrupts things. And really the only play that they had, which was effective for a while and then kind of stopped using it, was just that little touch pass to Horvat at the top when he's in the bumper spot where he kind of backs off a little bit to the hash marks and can really snap it from there. It's a great shot, but it was really the only thing they had, and I think that was, they stagnated there a little bit. Noah Dobson really took kind of fell off last season, I think, in terms of changing some of the looks at the top. So I would hope that D'Angelo can bring a little different look there, and I'm sure Ray Bennett, who's the new assistant coach in charge of the power play, and he had some good tools to work with in Colorado. I think you could probably make a good. I think you or I could probably coach Nathan McKinnon and Kel McCarr to a 20% power play.
Do it.
Do what you do. Just do it.
Go.
This is not that group, but he is a good coach and has been around a long time. So I think there's a lot of faith in them being able to adjust and be a little bit less predictable, which has been a problem the last few years.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. A lot of predictability. And, a lot of fans say this, but I do think that there's also a reluctance to shoot the puck sometimes. It just seems like there's a lot of back and forth.
So you're the guy in the stands yelling, shoot?
I'm not that guy. Sometimes I'm thinking it, but I'm not exclaiming it in the audience.
It's him, right? It's definitely him.
It's not me. I'm very mild-mannered and reserved, Arthur. But there are times, though, where you're watching, and especially with the lack of success that they had, I was just like, get the puck to the net here. It just seemed like they had some lanes, and you get guys, that are a little guilty of looking for that perfect play, and they don't always get it. And when you're struggling that much, pucks on net and rebounds.
I mean, we think about the guys that were missing for a big, Barzal not being there.
Fair.
So that's the guy that it all runs through. So then you've got to try to adjust there. And Dobson, a little bit of injury, a little bit of uncertainty running the power play. He's not really a guy you run the power play through.
Sure.
So I think those are two big factors, at least for last season. I can't account for the previous few years when they were god awful. All those guys were healthy. But
right.
So you've got Barzal now. You've got Drouin, who worked with Ray Bennett in Colorado last year and put up some good numbers and was in Tampa with a bunch of good guys too. I think he knows where to get the puck to, who the guys are to get the puck to. I'd be curious to see too, having someone who's such a good passer on the opposite side. Brock Nelson did so much for the Islanders, but that was not really his strong suit, was being on that offside, that opposite wing. He's kind of a trigger man more than being a distributor. So, I think maybe we'll see a little bit more of Palmieri bumping out to the side, kind of the way Anders Lee used to, just to kind of facilitate some passes. I don't mean to bring up the Rangers, but I think the way that Chris Kreider plays the net front, where he is such a threat, but also would come to the side and be kind of a distributor. Seeing Barzal, he gets the puck down from Drouin, and then Barzal cuts in from the side, or someone cuts in from the side. I think that's become a big play. It's not just the Rangers. A lot of teams do that now, and you never really see the Islanders do that. Kind of take advantage of that weak side space with a guy who's driving the net, and that I think coaches always talk about they want to get pucks on net, and fans want to see them get pucks on net, but you still got to be smart about it. Goalies are going to stop clear shots. Goalies are going to stop most shots, and they're just looking to stop pucks and get face-offs when they're killing penalties. So you don't just want to throw possession away. You don't want to overhandle it either. So I think we'll see maybe from the beginning here, good puck movement, not a lot of body, not a lot of dusting it off and standing around. I think that'll be a good sign that maybe they've taken what Ray Bennett and Patrick Roy want them to be doing.
And remember, folks, if the power play does fail, Arthur said it last week, it's Patrick Roy's fault, not Bennett's fault.
That's right.
If things go south,
it's everybody's fault. Just blame the whole coaching staff. It's not one guy to blame.
There you have it. Now, power play 2, should we ever see them, Anders Lee and Duclair with Heineman in the middle. A little surprising there. What do you think there?
No, I mean, I think he's got that Horvat type shot. I don't know that he's well practiced enough to be a guy who gets it off that quickly. We'll see. I don't know. Like you said, who knows if they're even going to get that much time. But it's definitely a hodgepodge. So, last year when they were just searching for anything, you'd see a lot of balance and kind of a 1-1A. This is a 1 and a 2, which I think is how it should be. And I think that number 1 unit is going to get 90 seconds or so.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised maybe if as Schaefer develops more, maybe he and D'Angelo swap out a little earlier. But I think, it wouldn't surprise me to see Barzal pull an Ovi and play the full 2 minutes at times if he's feeling it.
Absolutely.
So I think you leave yourself a few options with that second unit group. But maybe they'll surprise. Again, they are kind of leaving the door open for Emil Heinemann to seize an offensive style role. And if he can, it's got to be good news for the Islanders, right?
Absolutely, and they are putting little faith in Shabanov as far as the offense goes. They do have him on the back end there with Schaefer on the defense, quote unquote, on the second power play unit. So if we see them out there, I mean, it's a fresh look, and I'm curious to see how it goes.
I mean, they're going to get some time, and the Islanders don't draw a ton of penalties, so maybe that'd be something that can change too.
We shall see, and we'll run through the PK real quick. You got Pajot with Holmstrom. I mean, you can't split those guys apart, right? They've made some magic back there
good
on the PK. They look great. You have Pellick and Pullock up there with them on the first unit. That makes sense. Those guys are the defensive stalwarts on this team when they're healthy. And then the second unit, you got Horvat with Cizikas and Romanov with Mayfield. That all makes sense to me.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how Palmieri's going to fit in, because I think towards the end of last season, him and Brock Nelson were the best penalty killing forwards they had. So, it's good to see Casey still having that role. I think he's, the penalty kills incredible lack of success the last couple of years. I think he's taken to heart a little too much. I'd like to see him shake that off.
Yeah.
And, they've got Bob Bogner now, who's running that penalty kill. Guy who's been in the league a long time as a head coach and an assistant coach, associate coach. So again, put last year behind them, where it was, if it wasn't for the Red Wings, I think they would have set a record for the worst penalty kill in the last, 30, 40 years. Just shake that off.
Yeah.
Still some same personnel, but a new outlook. And especially, I think, for a guy like Casey, who's been a penalty killer for years and years and kind of ridden that wave. I remember when Greg Cronin and Jack Capuano were here, and they had one of the worst seasons ever. They were in the 70s when nobody was in the 70s on penalty kill.
Yeah.
And next year they were almost up to 90%. So it's very fickle. And I think it's really, a lot of guys, players and coaches talk about penalty killing is not necessarily about skill. It's about want. You have to want to do it. You have to want to throw your body in front of a shot, want to move guys out of their spots. And I think they certainly have guys that can do that role.
Well, we'll see how much desire the Islanders have this season.
We can't be questioning it this early. We haven't even started yet. No questioning anybody's desire.
It was just a general, we're going to see what happens, Arthur. We're not going negative yet. We have at least an hour until we get there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we got some time. But look, that'll do it for the lineup here. Excited to see how it all fits together. Excited to see how quickly Patrick Waugh changes it up. But before we go to break, Arthur, it's time for our new feature here, Arthur's Anthem. A lot of anticipation for opening night tonight. What do you got for us?
Well, we're all excited, so I went with a little 90s straight edge from New York City, Civ, a band that I know you're familiar with. I remember I love those guys from way back when. Can't Wait 1 Minute More, and you told me you haven't thought about that song in 30 years,
Buddy,
so that makes me happy that I brought that memory back for you.
Dude, I'll be honest with you, man. I saw your text and immediate smile. I was like, where did this come from? Again, buried in my brain for 3 decades. But my brain immediately went to the music video and the song. He did a whole Phil Donahue, Ricky Lake thing in the video, right? Remember that? And I put it on and I was like, oh my God, man. I feel like you're gonna do New Radicals next week or something like that. But great choice. Can't wait 1 minute more. And that's how we're feeling here at Borelli's Tap Room. 51 minutes until puck drop on the New York Islanders season. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us here at Borelli's. Thanks for hanging out with us here live on YouTube. We're gonna take a break. Then we're going on the line.
All right, boys, do you remember the game Knock Hockey from when we were kids? It's an absolute legendary game that they stopped making a couple years ago. However, it's back, baby. You can go to knockhockey.com, that's N-O-K hockey.com, and get it for your kids or your nieces and nephews or some random neighborhood kid, because they're all going to need it, because otherwise they're going to be playing video games for the next 6 months. And if you don't have kids, get it for yourself, or better yet, your girlfriend. She'll be hurt and confused at first, but once she starts slamming that puck around, she's going to love you forever, or at least the game. Go to knockhockey.com. It's a little pricey, I'm not going to lie, but it's made with real wood by hand in Michigan. When's the last time you heard of a product being made like that? This holiday season, be an absolute legend, make everyone happy, bring the family together, go to knockhockey.com.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on here from Borelli's Tap Room in Long Beach. It is time for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein, ready to fight for you. And we're putting an individual on the line who hangs out behind the bench. That's right, Mr. Patrick Roy is on the line in the spotlight. We're going to see what happens this year. New general manager taking over. Patrick Roy unleashed without Lou Lamoriello? What do you think, Arthur?
Maybe. I don't know
Okay.
that's the most positive outcome for his players. You know, we love Patrick Roy because
Sure.
we think of the fiery player, the Hall of Famer. Guy was incredible amount of confidence and cockiness when he played.
Yes.
I think a lot of that is still there. My favorite story that I think Matt Laughlin, who's the Devils radio guy, told me that Marty Brodeur was and while we're at a golf outing this summer.
I love where this is going.
And Patrick Roy was there, and someone was talking to him, and Brodeur came over and interrupted, and he said to the woman who's standing, he was like, I'd like you to meet the second best goalie of all time. Introducing Marty Brodeur, which sounds like Patrick Roy to me. I think
Amazing.
I think it's going to be interesting to see if he, has a little bit more input when it comes to personnel decisions. I'm sure that Mathieu Darche consulted him.
Mm-hmm.
Lou doesn't really consult anybody. I think we know that you've been doing that when you're doing the job for 50 years. You don't really have to ask a lot of people what you want. Right. And I think there was some conflict, maybe conflict is too strong a word, but it became clear that Lou Lamoriello's player, the style of play that Lou wanted was different than the style of play that Patrick Roy wanted. I think Mathieu Darche, in keeping Patrick Roy on after he took the job, is acknowledging that we're going to play the way that Patrick Roy wants to play. So in that sense, I think he is unleashed, but I still need to be convinced that they have the horses to play that up-tempo style all the time.
Sure.
I think the league very much was trending that way for a lot of years. I think now you're starting to see some teams start to try to slow it down a little bit more, play a little bit more, clogging it up. So when you run into that and you're not quite skilled enough to overcome it, like a Colorado or an Edmonton, could be some frustration. So, I think he's got confidence in what his style is. He's been a coach for a long enough time now that I think he knows what he wants. Whether they can do it is a question, and is the first question. And the second question is, what will his frustration level be? Because I think we saw some of that maybe in the Duclair situation late in the year. And, he is from his day as a player to his day as a coach now, players are different. And that direct criticism or through the media criticism is not something that a lot of modern players really appreciate.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how he can hold his tongue. He did it very well for a year and a half under Lou, and I think that was part of it. So now, like you said, he's different scenario with who his boss is. So yeah, I've got a lot of questions about how this is going to go. That's basically what I'm saying.
That's part of where I was going with this Roy Unleashed thing here. Like, are we going to see some more fire now that Lou's out of the picture? And like you said, to his credit, he did a great job of keeping it reserved, because I think that was at least 33% of the excitement of Patrick Roy coming back to the NHL, right? Was just seeing him get behind a bench and seeing what kind of fireworks are going to happen back there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And he kind of kept it low key to his credit. So I'm wondering now if, he has the year behind his, behind the bench now. He's used to being back, and maybe with the change of scenery here, quote unquote, with Darche coming in, does he feel a little looser to kind of go out there and show some more Patrick Roy fire than we're used to?
Yeah, it's a question, but like I said, I think you have to temper it with knowing who you're coaching, you've got not just a guy like Barzal who maybe wouldn't take that kindly to that sort of public criticism, but you've got most important player in the franchise right now in Mathieu Schaefer, and you've got to bring him along the right way. So, Patrick Roy is a smart guy. I don't think he's going to overstep his bounds too much, but again, got to wait and see.
Looking forward to finding out. We're going to find out either way. And just to go from a systems perspective, and you brought that up before, it's just, it looks like he's going to be leaning more offense over D, right? I mean, that was kind of maybe the quote-unquote clash, if there was one, between him and Lou Lamoriello last season. So, it's one thing, in philosophy to do that. It's one thing to intend to have more offense versus defense, but does he have the horses to play that kind of style with these guys?
Yeah, I remember when Darche was hired, I was talking to a couple of agents that I know who have guys on the team, and one of them summed it up pretty well. I said, Lou wanted to win 2-1. Patrick wants to win 5-4. Darche has got to figure out where in the middle the Islanders fit.
Yeah.
So, I think you can want all the offense that you want, but you have to be realistic. And I don't know. And you've got essentially two guys that are puck movers on the back end. And I think when Patrick first came in and he was kind of describing his system about that sort of man-on-man hybrid defensive system where you try to have a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 advantage with the offensive players turn the puck over and everybody goes the other way. Like, I don't know how many of those defensemen we're going to see that from, that they're just physically capable of doing it. So, that leads me to believe, and we talked about it on Sunday, Mathieu Schaefer can do that. If he's able to turn pucks over and be physical and kind of do those things that maybe we're not so sure about, but he's certainly good at the other stuff. And the temptation to play him more and more and more as he's able to do that and get up the ice and do the things that Patrick Roy wants to see from the Patrick Roy system, that's a real push and pull too, that you can't overuse this kid right now, because unless he's scoring 80 points and they're at the top of the division and it's all working out great, there's no reason to do it, and it's not going to help him down the road.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm curious about is how Patrick Roy is going to approach this with the defense in mind, because as we said on Sunday, it's their weakest link. It's totally their weakest link. So my question is, are they going to try to overcompensate for that and protect the goal because of that? Or are they going to try to go the other way and score as many goals as possible to compensate for what they might be giving up?
What's interesting to me is that, we get, sometimes I do it too, we get stuck on this opening lineup and say like, this is it. Can they do it with these guys? And we know there's going to be injuries. Guys are going to get nicked up.
Yeah.
And you've got Adam Boqvist as the number 7, who is a puck-moving guy who can skate well. And Isaiah George is the first call-up, and he is a puck-moving guy who can skate well. So they have some options to change the look. Even if guys aren't hurt, that to me would be the most interesting thing, and that's kind of a Wad-Darche combination situation where you identify, like, Scott Mayfield is just, through age and wear and tear, not able to keep up. Can you risk sitting him out and putting in a Boqvist?
Right.
Or if Pelech is not playing the way that you want him to, can you change that? Adam Pelech's been the best defenseman in the Islanders organization for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Can you start to make a change there and bring up Isaiah George without, if there's an injury, you bring him up and shift some things around and get him in there and get things moving from the back. You're going to have to take some chances, I think, with this group to play the way that he wants them to play. And I'm curious to see, I can't imagine that Lou would have been amenable to that. Will Mathieu Darche be amenable to that? I would hope so, because the reason you kept Patrick Roy is because you wanted to see him succeed and brought in coaches he wanted and see them play the way that they want. I think they have some options. It's just not the options we're seeing right now.
Agreed. And Roy seems to be pretty high on Boqvist. I mean, he even put him forward a couple times last season.
Yeah, let's not. That to me is like Casey Zizekas' top line in the playoffs.
Right.
Needs must kind of situation. Not a choice you wanted to make.
Right, but I guess my point is we might see him sooner than later as far as combination juggling goes.
Yeah, I think that Mayfield is really the number 6 guy in this group, and I don't think it's a knock on him to say, even if he's healthy, if he plays 55, 60 games as a healthy guy, that's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Where he is in his career.
Right.
So you swap him out for Boqvist, maybe even you swap him out for George if you're willing to play some guys on their off wing.
Right.
I think, like I said, they do have some options. It's really, we're not in desperation mode yet, and it feels like they've been in desperation mode with their D-corps a lot of years in running.
Yeah, no question about it. So you talked about the Schaefer deployment. We even covered that a little bit on Sunday, and maybe we can just lump this in together with him and Sorokin and just how much Wah is going to find, or hopefully find, that balance between playing his top guys when he needs them, but also not burning them out, right? Especially a young kid who just came into the league, and especially a goaltender who, as you noted on Sunday, isn't a guy who's going to play 60, 65 games without showing fatigue, right? Without showing some wear and tear. That's kind of been proven here. We've seen that enough now where Sorokin needs his rest. And that's not to take anything away from him. That's not to say that he's not ready to go, he's not ready to play, but he's just one of those guys that kind of needs to take a break every now and then, right? So is Patrick Waugh, if they're in the heat of a playoff race, if we get to meaningful hockey deep into March, is Sorokin playing every night, or is Patrick Waugh gonna, find a balance there?
I mean, I think if you're going to set it up where he's going to play every night, you got to start setting that up now. You got to say in these next 5 games in 9 days or 10 days or whatever it is, you commit to playing David Riddick in a couple of them, so that if we're in the playoff hunt in March, this is going to be our guy, because we got to ride him 6, 7, 8 in a row. It's you just have to have a plan, and every coaching staff has a plan. You tend to want to adjust, and I think Patrick Waugh, based on the fact that he is a Hall of Fame player, maybe adjusts with some gut instinct and some feel a little bit more than some other coaches that are more by the book. But I would hope that there's kind of a group input and a reminder that there's enough evidence with Ilya Sorokin to know that overusing him it's either going to bite you now or it's going to bite you in April. So I think if we see, even if Sorokin starts off really well, if we see Riddick get a couple of scheduled starts here early, maybe that's a good sign that we know that there is a plan in place, and they're pointing towards the important part of the season when they know that they're going to need a healthy and rested Ilya Sorokin.
For sure. And, we already, pretty well covered the special teams before, but I am looking forward to getting your opinion on this, because it is a very unique trait of Patrick Waugh that we saw introduced very early in his tenure here with the New York Islanders, and that is pulling the goaltender with 42 minutes remaining in the hockey game. Obviously exaggerating, but 6 sometimes. I don't know, maybe there was a 7-minute spot where they were down 2 or 3 goals. Just want to get your overall opinion on that, if maybe he needs to dial that back a little bit, because let's face it, didn't see a lot of success with that strategy.
Well, I think, again, that's the personnel that you've got. And I think he was really a trendsetter. I think he was the first coach in his stint in Colorado 15 years ago to realize, and that is through analytics, that you give yourself the best chance the sooner you pull the goalie. A lot has to go right after that, and the tendency is to give up that
possession.
Yes, goalies that are gonna, not goalies, players that are gonna hustle back when they know that the net is empty.
Yeah.
And off a turnover, don't turn the puck over as much. Don't just fire shots at the net. That's a situation where people are yelling shoot. You definitely don't want to do it too soon, because you lose possession.
Yeah.
So I think he, being an early adopter, was I think he set the trend, and a lot of coaches, maybe not 7 minutes, but three, and just inside of 3 minutes now, between 2.5 and 3 minutes is the industry standard.
Yeah.
When you're down a goal, because you want to maximize that time, and he really was the first one to do that. Again, when you don't have the personnel, when your power play is 11% and you're going 6-on-5,
yes,
you do need to do it as early as possible, because you need to have it as much of an advantage. It somehow seemed psychological with them last year, just like it did when they had their stretch a couple of years ago for giving up 5-on-6 goals.
Right, and that all could change, absolutely. But I do think I do think the fellow had a big enough sample size to say to himself, you know what, this really isn't working too well.
But this is one where the analytics book says what you do, and you do it, and you remind the players, this is what we're doing. Prepare yourselves.
I guess so. I just feel now. Listen, in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't have been the difference between making the playoffs or not, and probably would have been the difference between getting Schaefer or not. So I guess we should all be happy that that's where the dominoes fell. But I feel like there could have been a few more points in the standings if maybe he just pulled the trigger a little later on that. Why not wait till 2 minutes?
No. You
2.5.
You got to stick to it once you start doing it. I applaud that.
Okay, all right, fair enough. You like the stubborn approach. Okay, fair enough. All right, so last question here on Patrick Waugh. How long is his leash this season?
That's a good question. Obviously, if they're really bad to start the year, which I don't think that they will. Even if they're a disappointing team, or they even, they finish sort of roughly where a lot of people feel they're going to finish in that 80 to 88 point range. I think they're still going to be in it to the end. This is just the way that this is their DNA. This is how this Islander team is built. They still have a lot of those guys left over from the days of when they would fight to the finish of a game and a season. So I don't know that they're going to be dead in the water by Christmas. If they are, then obviously I think we're going to be set to see a change. But I don't know that it's going to be in the middle of the season. I feel like you make this commitment after Darche comes in, Patrick Waugh, they make the decision to keep him. You got to give him a full year, and maybe even more than that, depending on how they do. He's got, I think, 2 or 3 years left on his deal after this. So, once you get to the back end of a deal like that, then you can start to absorb the money and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. But I feel like it's a big evaluation year for him. To me,
Certainly.
He's got the full year, and if things don't go, if they go south fast, then he doesn't have the full year. You've got a guy who's been a head coach before in Bogner on the staff that you can just turn to as an interim. But obviously, you're already at a pretty big deficit. If that's what you're looking for.
You're bringing up the negative stuff now.
I'm just saying this is, a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Okay.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
But I think the opposite possibility is, they're in it to the end. Maybe there's a chance that Darche, even if they miss the playoffs, that he sees enough in Waugh's system and his coaching ability and his ability to relate to the players that they want to try it again for another year. I mean, you got to. This is really his first full year with the coaching staff that he has picked. So yeah, I think he's got the full year. That to me is a pretty long leash for a guy in this situation where they're coming off missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think a full year, unless the wheels fall off very early, and nobody here is predicting that. We're just saying if. We're just saying just in case. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Patrick Waugh lasts, and hopefully, like you said on Sunday, they get off to better than just like a 3-2-2 start. Let's see 4-1-1, maybe 4-0-2.
Wow, you're really getting crazy there.
Listen, all over the board here. None of this matters. All right, so I think that covers it for Patrick Waugh. Great stuff there, Arthur. We're going to take one more break, and then we're going to go What's on Tap. We'll be right back.
When in need of representation, it's not always easy to know where to turn. But whether you've been accused of a crime or need to go to court, Razor, Kniff & Lonstein, attorneys at law, have you covered with over 100 years of combined experience. With offices in Manhattan, Mineola, and Suffolk, Razor, Kniff & Lonstein is an award-winning law firm specializing in criminal defense with additional expertise in business debt settlement, trust and estates, personal injury, and more. At Razor, Kniff & Lonstein, you'll have direct access to your attorney 24/7. Because more attentive service translates to better outcomes. You deserve legal representatives with national recognition and a strong track record of delivering results. And Razor, Kniff & Lonstein are ready to fight for you. Call 212-LAW-1500 or go to razorandkniff.com to schedule a free, no-risk consultation today. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com. Razor, Kniff & Lonstein. We win cases because we make your problems our problems.
Hey there, welcome back. We missed you too. Now kick up your feet and settle back in to Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. Kick up your feet. Settle back in to Hockey Night in New York. It's time to go What's on Tap. Let's see what's ahead for the New York Islanders. In very short order, 31 minutes from now, the New York Islanders will face off against the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh. Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin et al. The Pittsburgh Penguins. So 3-0 win for them over the Rangers to start the season. A little surprising there. I didn't see that coming. What did you see, Arthur?
I saw a really well-prepared team. Dan Muse, who I covered when he was an assistant with the Rangers the last couple of years, was a guy that a lot of Ranger players would tell me he's going to be an NHL head coach one day. I don't know that if they meant right away after the team kind of disbanded. But he's a guy, he coached a lot of the top picks from the U.S. development program before that. He ran a lot of the practices under Peter Laviolette. I think he's a guy that very detail-oriented. And, when I think the Penguins go out and hire him after they let Mike Sullivan go, sort of sending a message. This is a very untested coach. They've got a team that's not necessarily going to be at the top of the standings.
Right.
They just want him to work hard and kind of start building the team back up. So started right away with a very good effort. They've got a couple of teenagers in the lineup. Harrison Brunick on defense, Ben Kindle, their first-round pick this past year. Artur Silovs, who they got from Vancouver, who led them into a surprise playoff run a couple of years ago in net. I think they've made some nice additions considering what they've got.
Okay.
I think they're having those big three guys still there. All the talk about Sidney Crosby, will he get traded this year?
Yeah.
Evgeny Malkin is last year of his contract, probably going to go play somewhere else after the year. Chris Letang, who knows? So it's an interesting dynamic that they've got there. But when you've got Sidney Crosby on your team, and especially the Islanders can attest to that, you know that there can always be trouble. I've probably covered 40 to 45 Islander Penguins games, and I could count
He
them.
had 40 to 45 goals.
I mean, it's been ridiculous at times to see the way that he's torched the Islanders. So he does like seeing the blue and orange show up across the ice.
Yes, he does.
But I think in recent years, the Islanders have been able to handle them pretty well, especially in Pittsburgh. So I feel like Pittsburgh's going to come back down to earth a little bit. I feel like the Islanders are ready for this season. It's a big opportunity for them. We keep hearing about the new era with Darche in charge.
Yes.
A lot more marketing of the players, a lot more, coming out. And we can see even on the TV, Matthew Schaefer taking his rookie lap out there in Pittsburgh.
No helmet?
No helmet. That's
a brave young man.
That's post Lou era stuff right there for sure.
The rules really have changed.
I think the excitement is certainly there, and I'd like to see them transfer that excitement into some aggressive play early, smart play early, because I don't think the Penguins are very deep, and I think that the Islanders match up pretty well with them, especially to start this season.
Well, speaking of being deep, top pairing next to Erik Karlsson, Parker Wotherspoon for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Bet.
An old familiar name.
A blast from the past of Islanders obsessives, for sure. A guy who never really got a chance here, and as soon as he left, when he signed with the Bruins, he turned into an NHL player.
Yeah.
And I think, just a kind of a victim of a logjam for sure. When he was drafted and kind of became a pro, he was behind, the development of guys like Pelech and Devon Taves, and learned a lot from those guys playing in Bridgeport for as long as he did. But never really got a chance. And then when the transition from Garth to Lou, a GM that doesn't draft you and you're a prospect that's kind of a on the fence guy, you tend not to get a shot. It just happens everywhere.
Right,
so
sure.
He gets lost in the shuffle because he's not one of Lou's draft picks. He's not someone that Lou knows very well. Goes to a different organization, becomes an NHL player. The light goes off. He was forced into some top pair play, I think, in Boston too, and really handled himself well. And, this is, I kind of marveled when I saw them rolling out their decor for that first game, and a buddy of mine who's a scout is like, he was probably their best defenseman in training camp in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, good for him. He's a great kid. Not a kid anymore, but
Right.
It's nice to see him succeed. And, I think that situation for a player like that, I think we've seen it in past years with the Islanders. Some guys, you think of a guy like Andrew McDonald, who was really not a heralded guy, was thrust into a role alongside Travis Hamonic, where he did play a lot of minutes, developed a lot of confidence, turned it into a pretty decent NHL career.
He did.
Big contract with Philly, that's for sure. So
Yes, I remember that.
So I think for Wotherspoon, it's good. Playing alongside Erik Karlsson is an adventure. I'm sure
That's one way to put it.
I'm sure that he's ready for it, and it's an interesting group they've got there in Pittsburgh for sure.
Absolutely, and like you said on Sunday, a good start for the Islanders here. A good team to start your campaign against a struggling Pittsburgh Penguins, a rebuilding Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, for sure. I think I don't think you could take them lightly, and certainly the way that they played against the Rangers, really smothering the Rangers. I think one high danger chance for the Rangers that entire game, which is not how you want to start a season for sure. So I think the Islanders, again, you have to be able to kind of get aggressive, get the lead on these guys, because they're not a high-powered offensive team, despite having some of those big-name Hall of Famers still on the roster. And I think Tristan Jarry is a guy who the Islanders have seen a lot over the years. Certainly took advantage of him in the 2021 playoffs.
Sure did.
So I think you get to him early, and the fact that he didn't start the opener, that he's it's still on the fence whether he's the number one guy there.
Yeah.
You take advantage of that. You try to get some pucks on him early, get some traffic in front of him early, and rattle him a bit.
But let's move on to Saturday. Home opener, UBS Arena, 7 p.m. puck drop. The Washington Capitals come to town. The resurgent Washington Capitals after the season they had 100-plus points. What, 111 points I think it was last season?
Surprising.
Pretty impressive. Obviously chasing the goal record. We all know when and where that happened. And that's out of the way now. And now the narrative might be this could be Alex Ovechkin's last season. But is this something that they can repeat? Are they going to be as good as they were last year?
I don't see it. I certainly didn't see that they were going to be that good last year, so my judgment may be a little bit off. Predictions are not my best thing. But yeah, I see them, I think you even saw it a little bit last night when they lost to the Bruins in their home opener, and their season opener rather. Had a certain, 7 power plays, I think, and you think of the Caps having, one of the best power plays of all time with Ovechkin and the guys that they have. But, it just can be very fickle, and I don't know that their goaltending, they've got good guys there, but I don't, and Lindgren and Logan Thompson, but I don't know that they're going to be able to repeat what they did last season too. So I think that, the Islanders are right there in the mix with those guys. And again, you talk about setting the tone early, especially with these, having 2 division games right off the hop is pretty rare for the Islanders.
Yeah.
They usually kind of have that one opener, and then you see a lot of the Utahs and the Buffaloes, and they kind of, have some teams coming in from out of town that you only see once a year, and they're going to dive into that, I think, in a couple of weeks. But it's a good way to start off. You put 4 points up on the board against 2 teams in your division, especially one that won the division running away last year.
Are we talking 2-game winning streak here, Arthur? Is that what we're saying?
You were the one that was talking 4-1-1. He's going nuts with 4 wins in the first 6. So,
all right, fair enough. All right, well, look, there's 8,000 games left in this upcoming week, so let's move on to the next one. Winnipeg, 1 p.m. Matinee. Back to the matinees. I'll be working. But I'll try to tune in. But you got the Winnipeg Jets coming to town. President's Trophy winners last year. Fell a little short in the playoffs. Hellebuck, great goaltender. Postseason struggles a bit. But this is the regular season. Regular season Hellebuck against the Islanders. What do you see?
I mean, it's a good team. And, I think the drop-off that you have, too, and we've seen this over the years, whether it's at the Coliseum or at UBS, where the excitement for the home opener on a Saturday night, everyone's going to be, place is going to be packed. It's going to be very exciting. Monday afternoon, people have to work. I know the kids might be off of school, but you may not, and it's a team that people aren't familiar with. You're maybe not going to see the sellout. You're not going to see the big crowd. Right. You got to be able to keep that level up against a team that you don't see very much, and you're not scouting a ton because you only see them twice or 3 times during the year. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be a week between that and Edmonton coming in. It's a test for them. These are 2 teams that people are talking about as Stanley Cup contenders from out west. Even if you don't see them that much, you certainly know some of the guys.
For sure.
So I'm curious to see the excitement of this week, whether they can keep it up next week when you get less familiar opponents, maybe not as many people in the building too.
Right. So that's game 2 of a 3-game homestand to start. It does not get any easier as we move into the next one. As you just mentioned, Thursday night, the 16th, Edmonton comes to town for a 7:30 start. Big news out of Edmonton is Connor McDavid has re-signed, interestingly, for 2 years, I believe at $12.5 per. Now, Arthur, do you think that is a silent deadline for the Oilers to win a Stanley Cup in 2 years and then he's out of town, or is he just kind of taking it contract by contract up there?
I think it could be partly that, but I think a lot of it too is Connor McDavid is the best player that we've seen since Wayne Gretzky.
We know
and
this.
The cap is going up exponentially in the next few years.
Fair point.
You get as many bites at the apple as you can if you're a player of Connor McDavid's stature. It's interesting to see there's been a lot of 8-year deals, which has surprised me. You saw Kaprizov sign for the $17 million per, and Jack Eichel signing up for whatever it was, 12.5 or 13.5.
Yeah.
I'm a bit surprised because the agents that I talked to were kind of thinking like, okay, the cap's going up. If you're an elite player, you sign for 2 or 3 years. And again, if you're in a situation like McDavid, obviously he can afford to leave some money on the table because they've been to the finals the last 2 years. They want to be able to keep some flexibility, but also you say in 2 or 3 years, hey, if we win a couple of cups, you want to keep me? Now it's 20 million or it's 22 million, and then we'll do that for 3 years, and in another 3 years,
makes sense
when he's only 34 or 35, he can say, nice. how about we only ramp it down to 17 million a year this time?
Only 17.
So I think
pennies.
It's interesting to see the reaction too about whether this is setting a trend in terms of teams wanting guys to take less. Maybe so, but if they're going to take 2 years, if you're going to see whoever the next big star is, whether it's Austin Matthews, I think he's the next big star that's going to come up for free agents. If he says, all right, for the Leafs, I'll take 2 years and $15 million. And it's not an ultimatum. It's in 2 more years, it's going to be $5 million more.
Make
we'll just
sure you
keep
clear
adding
that
to
cap
it.
space. Absolutely. Well, we know what the Oilers bring to the table. Stanley Cup finalists, great squad up there. That is going to be a tough game. And rounding out the week before our next episode, Saturday, the 18th in Ottawa, 3 p.m., another matinee. This is a team on the rise. They got young guys there. They got obviously Brady Tkachuk, Stützle, Pinto, Sanderson, Shabbat. Are they still moving up? Are they still a rising team here?
I think so, and they're a nasty team too. They're a team. You saw the way they kind of got into it with the Canadians in the preseason.
Yes.
I know that's not necessarily their full lineup, but any team that's captained by Brady Tkachuk is going to have an edge, and I think that's a good test too to have early in the season where Islanders don't really have anybody that you'd identify as a bruiser, guy who's going to want to mix it up. That's a situation where you've got some guys that are going to probably go in hard on the forecheck on Schaefer and really test him too.
Absolutely.
So can you keep the flies off of Schaefer when the play is going on, and can you keep your cool or lose your cool as need be when the whistle's blown? I'm interested to see who's going to be able to handle that role. I know Scott Mayfield he's been a fighter in his career.
Yeah.
Not the best fighter we've ever seen, but he's willing to do it.
Right.
Anders Lee has dropped the gloves in his career. I don't really want him doing that. But really, outside of that, I don't really see too many other people on this roster who are going to be willing to cross the line to defend an important player. So you want to have that moment as early in the season as you can to kind of see who's got the fortitude, who's the one, who are the guys that are going to step forward and say, okay, you want to mess with our guy, we're going to mess with you.
I like that angle. It will be a test for sure. So that will do it for What's on Tap. And now we're going to swing it into Hero of the Week. That's right. It's time to talk about heroics. It's time for Hero of the Week, presented by Knock Hockey. Get your board at knockhockey.com, knockhockey.com. All right, so Arthur, you started things off on Sunday. We're going to flip the script here. We're going to get crazy.
You first.
I'm going to go first
All right,
this
let's
time.
hear it.
That's right. So we touched on him slightly, kind of intentional. Top line comes over from Colorado, Jonathan Drouin, billed to be the savior of the power play for the New York Islanders.
Really?
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
You were questioning me about Big Save Dave, and now you're throwing a lot on this poor guy.
Yeah, well, you know what? We need to see some improvement there because, let's face it, not only the power play, but the special teams have just been dreadful. And this guy has been billed as a power play specialist coming over to this team. So I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say this guy is not only going to be a factor here, but he's going to pot some power play points this week before we chat next Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by your strong commitment to this prediction here.
Well, Arthur, that's the rules. I had to pick somebody. And he is my projected Hero of the Week, Jonathan Drouin. Don't let me down. Arthur, you're up.
Okay, well, mine is probably a little bit more of an obvious choice, but I'm going to go with Ilya Sorokin as my
really
hero
went
of the
out
week.
on a limb here.
Yeah, I did. You can always pick
See
the
how that
goal.
works?
You can always pick the goalie as the most important person out there, but I think it's important, especially for this season, to see him start off strong and start off being able to play well enough to take a break when they need him to take a break. I think if he's not on his game, you definitely want to see, he's going to want to continue to play and kind of make up for it. Wah might kind of try to lean on him to get him right. That's the wrong strategy. I think if we see him controlled, out there, looking sharp, covering his, not leaving many rebounds tonight, not really, getting off his line, getting, fishing a lot of pucks out of the net the way that he has, when he looks a little bit dejected at times, or, I think these first two starts, obviously it's huge for the team, but I think it's huge, especially for Sorokin, to get off to a good start and be able to allow himself and allow the coaching staff and the front office to say, okay, our plan is we're not going to overuse this guy. He's playing well. We know he's going to play well from start to finish this season. Let's give him the break that he needs, and we'll be able to kind of be okay with it.
All right, folks. Well, time will tell with that. But Jonathan Drouin, Ilya Sorokin, your heroes of the week, presented by Knock Hockey, the all-time family fun classic. Get your board at knockhockey.com today. And now I'm going to tell you all a little bit about our friends at Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. And now we're going to swing it over for some questions. It's time for Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Questions Brewing, where you can go ahead, ask us a question. Do you have a question, Miss? You know what? That is in the works. I believe January, actually. You let the cat out of the bag. I think January 29th, the Islanders go to the Garden. So first question off the bat, we're back at Borelli's.
Wow,
January
we didn't even
29th.
need the internet for this one.
No, we're doing it here live.
We're doing it here
That's
live.
right, in the room. It's all happening. Well, it's not tonight. It is not
It
a
never
Rangers
will be.
bar tonight. It is an
not a Rangers
Islanders
bar.
night. We're here to see the Islanders take care of business against the Penguins. Ed, how we
Yes.
doing, pal?
We're doing great. I am in the shadows here.
We're all in the
if you-
shadows
if you-
right now. We're going to have
guys
to
are
improve
lit
the
up.
lighting
Ed,
for
are you
next
still
show.
there? I can't even see you over
I
there.
am on the.
You've been
on
so
the
good
screen,
over
I
there.
look like I'm Batman. I feel like I could have.
So you went from Howard Stern last show to Batman tonight.
Yeah, I know. I'm all over the place.
You are. Well, we got some questions or what?
Yeah, we do. But one thing we got to get straight first off with the questions is people want to know, Arthur, what are you drinking? But I'll clarify that that's Sean's
That's
ginger
actually
ale.
my
That's
glass
Sean's
of
ginger
ginger
ale.
ale.
Removed
Yes.
from
You could have
the
made up
frame.
something
but
really,
you know
really
what,
good.
Ed, I'm glad you brought that up.
Why?
Because I said this to Arthur before the show started.
Yeah.
Now, we've only started hanging out here recently, with the show. But, he came to the studio. Hey, Arthur, you want anything to drink? Oh, no, I'm good. He comes here tonight. Hey, Arthur, you need anything? A water, a ginger ale? Oh, no, I'm
Not
good.
anything.
I'm like, Arthur, are you a vampire? Like, do you hydrate? Is that something you
I
participate in?
prepare. I'm a professional.
You
damn it.
took care of it before you got here.
Yes.
All
yes.
right.
You
had
got to
the
be ready
IV
for the whole show,
injected.
and then when we're done,
Well, I got eyes on you after this show. We're going to see what happens during the game because I
we are
haven't
in
seen this guy put
a-
anything in his body
we
since
are in
I
a
met
great
him.
bar, so
That's true.
we'll see.
All right, we'll find out. All right, Ed, what do you got
So
for
from
us?
Doc Ed, he asks, from a purely human aspect, how
Okay.
does Wob repair his relationship with Duke if you have Duclair playing on a fourth line? This feels like an unnecessary / unforced error.
Interesting.
Doc Ed, good to hear from you. A long time follower of mine, good buddy. I think Anthony Duclair. He's not a kid. He's not 19 years old. He's a pro. He's been around a long time. I think he understood that when he took his leave of absence, it was more about rehabbing the injury and just not being at all effective as a player, rather than some huge blow up with Patrick Waugh. I'm sure he was hurt by it, but I don't think it was. It felt more dramatic in terms of the relationship than maybe it really was. So I'm glad that they got together. I'm glad that Anthony Duclair is back here. He's under contract for this year and 2 more years. So I think there was no doubt about him coming back.
Had to happen.
But and him starting on the fourth line, I think, is purely a function of they need to see him be healthy and play the way that he played towards the end of training camp. So if he does that, like we were saying earlier, I don't think he'll be a fourth liner for very long.
Yeah, I think it's okay to play it safe there, and unless he's got a really good poker face, I think Duclair is just genuinely over it. I think they're good. I think they're in a good place.
Yeah, and even if you're allowed to have a little hate in your heart towards a coach or whoever on
fire
your
in the
team.
belly.
It's not best friends league. So
true.
whatever drives him to get back and be an effective player.
Okay, I like it.
Nice. Next up from one of my favorites, Craig, regular human bartender.
Great name.
He
Outstanding.
I love it. He asks, who has more points by the end of the season, Tony D or Schaefer?
Okay.
You
I like
first
that
on that
one.
one,
Close.
Sean.
You want me to take that
Yeah.
one first? All right. Well, I did say that Schaefer's got to be an X factor on Sunday, right? So I'm going to say Matt Schaefer is going to have more points by the end of the season than Tony D'Angelo.
Okay. I think that means
Final
it.
answer.
That's it.
All right.
That's it. So,
Yeah, I'm
yes,
not even going to
We're
chime
going
in.
with Tony D.
That's all Sean on that one.
Oh, all right. Fair enough.
All right.
It's a hunch.
This scroll wheel is.
Optimism.
I think I'm stuck on this.
You got this, man.
It just.
You got this.
It's
All right. Well, while you get that worked out, Arthur, I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
Let's keep it on the the points production here. Who's going to have more points, Matt Barzal or Bo Horvat?
Ooh, I think I'm going to go Barzal on that one.
Okay.
Maybe it's just being optimistic, but I think just talking to Matt Barzal a little bit during training camp, I think he understands that, last year was such a fluke with the 2 bad injuries. he was playing really well in the games that he played in.
He did.
He was
Yeah,
on.
he was.
He was on a 75, 80 point pace. So I think he understands this is a big year for him personally. It's a big year for the team. If he wants to at all be in the conversation for the Olympics, I know it's a short stretch of time, and it doesn't seem like that will really be an option. But he's got to come out of the gate strong and show that not just. He's still got the tools and the skills and the physical ability. He's got to put up points. He's got to get noticed. So I think those are all things that are going to factor in for him to be that guy. And I think for Bo Horvat, this is a guy who, if Anders Lee, this is his last year as an Islander, last year, whether he's traded at the deadline or whether he leaves in free agency, they don't bring him back. Bo Horvat's probably the next captain of this team, I would think.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure.
So I think he's trying to be more leadership focused. He's got a young guy, he's got a new guy on his line. He can still be a 30-goal guy, but I think this is still Barzal's team, and I think Barzal wants to be able to establish this is still his team as far as offense goes.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, speaking of Barzal, do you know if he has been working on his face-offs?
I'm sure he has. I don't know if the results were there in preseason, but they do work on them. That's they're all out there taking draws after practice. It's one of those things that I hear a lot. It's like don't they practice? And I'm like they do. They practice it all. They may not be getting better at it, but they do practice it all.
Do they need to bring Dougie Waite back for a little
or
mentorship?
Marty Reisner, I believe, was the face-off guy for a little while.
Wow, going back. What else you got there, Ed?
I think this might be the last one. I think we brought up Boquist a little earlier.
We did.
But it's a general question. What happened to Boquist?
In what context?
I don't know.
What do we mean there?
But it's a question.
It's a question. What did happen to him?
Over his career, last year maybe.
I think he's just.
Did he get in an accident recently?
This is who he is, right?
I'm gonna put an angle on it. Maybe it's because he was a first-round draft pick who maybe hasn't really found his way in the league yet. Maybe we're wondering why that didn't pan out.
I think we watch him play. I think he's been in enough organizations now. He is what he is. He's a 6, 7, 8 guy and can provide some offense. Maybe you slot in as a power play guy. He seems to be pretty effective doing that. Mm-hmm. But in his own end, maybe not the best. So I think at this stage in his career, I don't think we're going to see a lot different from him.
Okay, fair enough. And that'll do it there, Ed? No more?
I think we just got eyes and ears tonight.
All right. Well, then I got one final question for you, Arthur. I need you to bring out your Magic 8 Ball.
Uh-oh.
What is the final score tonight between the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Okay, I'm going to go 4-2 Islanders.
I was going to go 3-1 Islanders.
4-2 Islanders, 3-1 Islanders. I'm going to go right in the middle and say 3-2. I think the Islanders are going to give up more than one goal. Ooh, regulation. You know what? I'm going to say regulation because once it gets past 60 minutes, it usually doesn't go too well for the Islanders.
Maybe they can change that trend, too.
Fair enough. Yeah, if they win,
it's a whole new era,
they can't go
Arthur.
to overtime.
Exactly.
It's the dawn of a new day, and it's about to start. We got puck drop in about 7 minutes. So there you have it. Across the board here, unanimous. The Islanders are going to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. Go to DraftKings. Put your money on the line there. It is a surefire bet, and if they lose, don't come back to us. We didn't say a thing. So that's going to do it for Questions Brewing, which also means that's going to do it for the show. Let's wrap it up, Ed. All right, folks, first and foremost, a huge, huge thanks to Borelli's Tap Room here in Long Beach for hosting us here. Love doing the show here. Love doing the watch parties. Can't wait to see Islanders Penguins up on the screen. So thank you to them. And a big thanks to everybody who's come out. We're looking forward to having a good time with you here tonight. And, of course, a big thanks to our audience over on YouTube. And, of course, a big thanks to our sponsors, starting with Knock Hockey. Less scrolling, more scoring. Get your board at knockhockey.com. That is NOK hockey.com. And a big thanks to Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court. Maybe some of us do. But if you have to, call 212-LAW 1500 for a free consultation. And folks, if you like what we're doing here at Hockey Night New York, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us out, and it makes us feel really good. Arthur, where can we find you on social and everywhere else? You don't have to give your address.
Twitter at Stape NHL. I'm on Blue Sky, and that's pretty much it for now. We still got some other things in the works besides this show, but this has been fun so far, so I'm excited. Excellent, excellent. You can follow myself on the Twitter at Shawnee Hockey.
You can follow the show at Hockey Night NY on all social media platforms, including Twitter, including Facebook, including Instagram and Blue Sky, and everywhere else you want to chat with your friends and comment and do all those very fun things. Also, check us out at hockeynightny.com. Ed, did you have fun tonight? He's smiling.
Yeah, I'm smiling. I'm waiting to eat my disco fries over there.
Yeah, man, they look good. I'm hungry.
Everything here is delicious.
All right, folks, puck drop in 5 minutes. Once again, thanks to all you for hanging out. For Arthur Staple, for Edzo here behind the glass. I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. We'll see you next time.